So for my first road marathon I could be in the city of London with 45,000 other people being supported by hundreds of thousands, or I could be here in the beautiful Connemara Mountains of Ireland's wild Atlantic west coast. Where would you rather be? Chuffed to bits. Isn't it amazing? Buns of steel and liver transplant, sand. Yeehaw!
What did you get in the week and a half? Quick.
We got a coach from Galway city to the start. We've stashed the bags on the truck and we're just walking down to the start line now.
Yeah,
Good day, guys. Enjoy every bit of it. Thanks so much for coming.
So we've started on the banks of Lough Inagh, or Inagh. I don't know how we pronounce it, so I'll write it down below. And this is quite famous for fishing. A lot of the lakes around here are, and salmon and sea trout in particular. To our left are the 12 bends, 12 pins are sometimes called, which are quite a famous collection of hills in this part of Connemara. And they're formed from sedimentary deposits 700 million years ago. 700 million years ago. So these 12 bends, or 12 pins, were sculpted and shaped right up until the end of the last ice age. Here's a quiz question for you. When did the last ice age end? I'll tell you in a couple of minutes. This first 10k is basically flat, and we start along the banks here of Lough Inagh or Inagh, and then we carry on down to Kylemore Lough. What's interesting to me is that whilst you've got these great mountains, the rest of the land around it is flat. So it's flat, boggy marshland, and then these great lumps of rock jutting into the sky. And what a beautiful sky it is today. The Irish Times outdoor correspondent said of the 12 bends, these are true kick-ass mountains with outstanding views. You've got to believe them, haven't you? So there's the first 10k done. I think we're alright really. I think it's just standard running aches and pains. So get to the end of the first 10k, we're about to turn right. The second 10k is along the banks of Kylemore Lough, and then Lough Fee, and finally we get to Killary Fjord. That's right, a fjord, not a loch. More about all of those as we get to them. Right fellas, so that's where we've come from, way over there. So this church is Our Lady of the Wayside, and it was described by one recent traveller as being an unpretentious house of prayer, solitary splendour surrounded by the wild beauty of Galway. Here you see what they meant. So the water you can see down there, that's the end of Kylemore Lough. And the famous thing about that, apart from the fabulous fishing, is Kylemore Castle, or as it's known now, Kylemore Abbey. And it started life as a private house built for a rich Victorian doctor. He was a politician as well. And it's got like almost 50 bedrooms. Took 100 labourers 4 years to build, and to me there's something quite distasteful about that sort of display of wealth. but he had very little luck in that house, and in fact it was taken over in the early 1900s, over 100 years ago, by an order of Benedictine nuns, and it is now an abbey to this day, with the needs of the poor being looked after. I know it's the wrong religion, but that's what I call karma. I asked you the question earlier, when was the last ice age, when did it end? Bearing in mind that it's 700 million years ago that the sediments were laid down that formed these mountains. And you might be surprised to know, what's it going to be, 10 million years ago? No. A million years ago? No. 100,000 years ago? No. Only 10,000 years ago was the end of the last ice age. That actually helped to shape these mountains you can see all around. That's really not very long, is it? And if you want to put it in perspective, if the guys doing the ultramarathon today, their first step is 10,000 years back to the last ice age, their last step is 700 million years, 70,000 times that distance ago. Crumbs. You might see some runners off there to the left. That's the Ultra Boys. They started about 3 miles before us and about an hour and a half earlier, and at this turning they turn left and they go on a 10-mile out and back, almost all the way to the sea through there. I bet it's beautiful, but I'm glad I don't have to do it. So I think that's Killary Fjord. It's called a fjord. There's a distinct difference between fjords and lochs. I don't know exactly, but it's to do with the steep sides and glacial formation leading out to the sea. It's one of, well, depending on who you talk to, it's the only one in Ireland, or else it's one of the only 3 or 4 in Ireland. And another one being Carlingford Lough, you may have heard of, famous for its seafood in Northern Ireland. I can only assume that these are shellfish beds, oysters or mussels, because you've got a lovely deep seawater fjord right here. So we're just at the 13-mile checkpoint, so it's only halfway. And I guess we've been going for, well, no idea, I'm imagining we're about 2 hours 20, something like that. My heart rate was doing the thing it often does at this time of day. We're 13 miles in, which is going a bit silly high. And I think it's when I switch over from energy stores, I think it runs out and I need to find something else. So I've just drunk a bottle of water, taken off my Royston Runner's top, sorry, but it's getting a bit hot. I'm just going to see how it settles down now. But yeah, slightly lightheaded, as you'd expect, but now's the time to dig in. I said the route split into 4 10k slots. Well, we're just starting the 3rd, obviously, but actually we're now on the same road all the way to the finish. So it's going to be quite an interesting challenge. Basically running 13 miles on the same road through terrain like we've seen before. And it starts with the best part of a mile of steep uphill, so I'm going to walk up here and let my body adapt. Kilometers to go. You can see it's peaty and boggy. Oscar Wilde, who was a long-time fan of Galway city in this area, described this part as being an area of wild, savage beauty. So we're just getting towards 16 miles. And there's not much to say about the area here, although this fella here, Rinavore Hill, it's 430 metres I think. It's described by Mountain View website as a big excellent portion. Certainly that all right. I think they're Scotch blackface as a breed. There's some very young lambs in there too. And those are big excellent portions still. That's where we're heading, up through that gap. It's really hard work now. Still got 8 miles to go. But clearly this is why they tell you to train running on tired legs. So I'm firmly in beachy head mode now. If you remember the video from October last year, got to the stage where I didn't feel able to run up the hills. So I'm walking the hills, reasonable pace, jogging the flats and jogging the downs where I can. Because it's still quite a long way to go, there's no point in knackering myself completely. Yeah, admire the view instead. There's quite a few of these churches dotted about from a while ago. And they've got surprisingly well maintained graveyards, and it seems, just having a little search on the internet, that they're very popular with Americans. But yeah, a lot of Americans seem to want to come here and find their descendants. So the final 10k, well 12k really, because the marathon's 42k. Final 10k is fairly flat. But it does have a fairly evil 3-kilometre hill coming, and then it's from there though it's downhill to the finish. So you see how the water from rain has carved erosion channels through the soil there. You've got to imagine that on a rainy day this river that we're just coming to flows pretty quickly. This is the start of the 3-kilometre little grind uphill to Maam Cross, which takes us through between those two mountains up there. Was a bit of a killer. Needless to say, I walked up almost all of it, except there was a photographer, so I ran, because the second rule of marathon running, after don't trust a fart after mile 20, is if there's a photographer you've got to smile and be running. But I overheard an Irish lad talking to his running companions, and he was saying, "Ah, this is a magnificent hill." He said, "It's lovely on a bike," and his friend said, "You cycled up here on a bike and call it lovely?" And he said, no, that'd be madness. He said, "I only ever go down it and then it's a marvellous hill." I said, "Now we've just got 4k, pretty much downhill all the way." And you can also see in the distance, I'll show you a bit more when we get closer, Lough Corrib, which is that wonderful fishing loch that's full of brilliant fish, and you can take a boat trip there right from Galway city centre pretty much. The weather's quite a lot colder now, and it's one of the ways I try and fool myself when I've just got 2 miles left to go here is I think of a road near me. Royston runners will know Garden Walk. Garden Walk is exactly half a mile end to end, so all I need to do is think between now and the finish line I just have to run Garden Walk 4 times, which is something that I've done many times. Not after having already run 24 miles in the rain in Ireland, but you know, you can't have everything. I think I've got about 1.5 lengths of Garden Walk to go. The rain's come in, but I'm leaving my waterproof off. I know it'll sound silly, but to keep it dry, I'll put it on. I'll get some dry clothes at the finish. Here we go. I never mentioned my goals. That was one thing I was going to say at the beginning. First goal was just to get here and start the race. So that was C goal. B goal was to finish. Fingers crossed, but I'm not counting my chickens yet. And the A goal is anything under 5 hours, and I've no idea. So we'll see what happens when we get there. Ooh, nearly done. This will be it then. Cheers for that. Cheers, thank you.
You remember, you know, we're all smiling to look at that. Fair play to you. Shall we leave our turn?
Race done. Knackered. 5 hours 20, I think, so B goal. And now we're on the bus ready to go back to Galway. So here it is, it's the next day, and I just wanted to add a little postscript because having sat on a hot bus for about 10 minutes, another 20 minutes into that journey, I came over all poorly and I felt really hot. I started sweating profusely, I was dizzy, I didn't know whether I was going to throw up or what. But when I said to the lady next to me, could she move out the way as I wanted to lie down in the aisles, 2 of the other people on the bus took over and supported me. So Terry Skelly and Bernie McMahon, they were just brilliant. They helped me, they got the bus to stop, I got outside for a couple of minutes with fresh air, and then they checked I was okay all the way home. And not only that, they walked with me in the rain for another 20 minutes and we got back to Galway to make sure I was safely at my hotel. So runners are renowned for looking after each other. Irish hospitality is legendary. Put the 2 together and you get hats off, Terry Skelly and Bernie McMahon. Thanks, fellas.